Miss Holly T. Hansen. We call her the Gen Teacher. She is the president and founder of Family History Expos, and she is back on today's third Friday Family History Big Blend radio show, and she's going to talk about family history repositories in Utah. I don't think I've ever used the word repository before.
No.
But this is a new one. Hey, I like that. Anything? She always has something to teach us. This is all part of our Roots Travel series in Parks and Travel magazine. She has an article about it, and that's going to be in the January through March issue, but you can see it now on nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Holly, and you'll see our expert page and past articles as well. She is one of our family history experts, not only in Parks and Travel magazine, but also in Big Blend Radio and TV magazine, so you can see her on blendradioandtv.com. But for the ultimate resource of family history, go to her website, familyhistoryexpos.com. Hey, Miss Holly, how are you?
I'm happy. It's a beautiful day here in Utah. I have to chuckle about the word repositories. It's a catch-all, you know. Because
It does
there's
sound
so many,
clinical, you know.
Yeah, there's
Just
so
saying.
many things that you can just dump into there. So using one word to catch a lot of things is kind of easy.
Yeah.
I think it's just where things repose until you need them again.
You have landfills, and this one is like the family history fill. This is where all kinds of things can get connected with that. And reading your article, I was like, I didn't even think half of these places were connected to family history. So I think this is important for people doing their family research online, but also if they're traveling it gives them other ideas of where to go and find their family's history. But before we get into that, I want to find out how your International Family History Expo went this past October. How did it go?
Well, it was amazing. It was really amazing. We had classes from many different parts of the world and presenters from numerous countries.
Yeah.
It was very exciting. I actually attended every single class.
Wow.
And I caught sleep, 2 hours here and 2 hours there because we were going around the clock.
Wow. Yeah, because it was a full week pretty much, right?
Yeah, 6 days. And, it's fascinating to me as you hear the history of so many different cultures, how it just makes everything brighter, come together for you. We're affected by so many things in our life, we're not even aware of it.
That's true.
That's an interesting comment. I like that.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you doing this as an international, expo. And I love that it's online because that means it's accessible to people around the world. But, we did an interview. I think it was the very first interview you did with us on the show was, you had Paula J. You also had, what she was talking about. You had people talking about Utah, South America, Africa. You had Israel at the expo, right? You had,
right.
Pretty
Greece.
much Greece.
Ukraine.
Wow. Oh, yeah. No, you see, but you're talking all places with good food, okay? So, it's connected.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
I love it. That's so exciting.
Yeah, 2 days before the expo, I thought, what am I doing? Why would I do this to myself? And on Saturday night when it was over, I just I got to do it again. It was so amazing.
Cool.
And it's kind of like having a baby. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work. And when you're in that just before the delivery, you don't think you can make it. But when it's over, it's so worth it. And you want to do it again. So it was amazing.
That's cool. That's cool. I think it's cool, because I like that. Because to me, it's something that I don't think you can ever stop learning your family history because you're learning the history of the world as you do that, and you're learning the history of the country, And that brings me to Utah. Okay, so are you going to do this again next year, right? So, now that you've said all that, I want to know. You're definitely doing
we
it?
are. We actually have scheduled the dates for August. We're going to do it in August instead of October. There's a new event that's going on in October in London. That's kind of an international event. I don't want to miss it. I want to be part of that. And so we've moved it to August and the 5th through the 10th. There you go. It's not even on our website yet. You're the guys first ones to hear about it.
Scoop.
Yay, we like that. The Family History Scoop. So everyone, familyhistoryexpos.com, and I also encourage you to sign up for Holly's newsletter. She'll keep you posted. She's got all kinds of events, and you've got all kinds of classes. You do a sarsaparilla event, right? Is that Sundays? What's that about?
It's on Sundays. It's on our blog, and Aunt Ida, she talks about a variety of things and applies it to family history. It's kind of fun. A nice, cool drink on a Sunday
on the
morning.
porch.
Yes, on the porch at the Waffle House.
Yeah.
It occurs to me that I remember as a kid in school thinking history was the most boring thing ever invented. And it occurs to me that if it were taught in a manner that would connect you by family, even just to open that thought in your mind that you may have a connection to the history that you're learning, that kids would be way more excited and remember history and get good grades and then like it.
Yeah, I know that's true. For me, when I was in the fourth grade, we had it was kind of like a science fair, but it was a Utah history fair, and we were supposed to tell something about Utah history, and I got to tell about my grandma's mother. My grandma lived right next door to me, and I came home and said, we're going to do this fair, and I got to talk about Utah history, and she told me the story about her grandmother coming from Scotland, and she turned 6 years old walking across the plains and wearing her little apron and gathering buffalo chips. And I probably mentioned that story before, but that's one of the things that got me going, and I wanted to be a pioneer. And but my grandma's mother, and my grandma telling me about her own mother being part of Utah's history was very cool and exciting.
Yeah, if you can make that connection with kids, they'll like history. I mean, now I'm just so into history, it's crazy. But I remember as a kid thinking, really, do we go to history class?
Yeah, really,
because there was no connection.
But this does it.
But
I think this does it, especially you start to. And I think that sometimes kids, when they interview, I know we're going to do this. Our December final show of the year is December 21st, and Holly will be on there we're going to have a 2-hour holiday party, and it's like families and family history and family traditions in the holidays. And I think some of the things that's really exciting about this is it's when families come together and kids can start asking grandma, grandpa, their aunts or uncles, cousins, asking them questions, and sometimes people forget their stories. And I think kids can get the information better than adults sometimes. Don't you think, Holly?
They do. They do. I know my granddaughter came over. She was working on a project for school. They were assigned to talk about an ancestor. And so she came over, and her mom said, I think she'd want to know about this one. And I just got all the pictures and some of the stories out and let her take her time. And we were both surprised at which one she picked. You never know what's going to strike a child, what interests them. So it's kind of fun to see that coming up in the next generation.
I like that.
Awesome.
And now Utah, this is interesting because Utah is like it's like the state that keeps everyone's records, from what I've learned in the past. And it's interesting to me that is so, and it's also it was like a huge part of the history of people going west, right? So that's part of the reason why, right, is that, so many people came through Utah. That couldn't have been easy.
Right.
You have mountains.
No.
There were mountain men, there were explorers that came, but when Brigham Young brought the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the members and moved them across the hinterland of our country, I mean, it was a huge migration of people. Many, many, many thousands of people who came. And so it was founded. Utah was founded and based on the religion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But all people were welcomed. But they had been through so much persecution, they went far enough away that nobody really wanted to follow them out here to
That's
keep bugging them.
You were talking about the persecution. I was reading on it. I always read what happened in history on this date. And like today's National Button Day. Apparently, you're related to that national holiday, Holly. So we have to talk about that.
Yes.
But talking about the persecution,
so cool.
And I was reading what was happening in history, and they were like, on this day, Brigham Young was, like kicked out of this area or something. Like he was like, I don't know if the government got involved or something happened. And I'm like, well, I'm not promoting that. I'm not putting that on our social media today. That's not very nice. It was like, wow, okay, so there was like, there really was like a rift at some point in history.
It was
with this.
very, very harsh. It was.
Yeah. Wow.
Very harsh persecution, and their homes burned, and they were mobbed and
wow,
tarred and feathered, and
wow, that's so hard.
It's not something we really talk about a lot because we look at the good. We look for the good. That's the way we approach life. Is bad things happen to people, and it's awful, and you help them out when they're down, and then you look for the good, and there's so much to be happy about.
It's a curious thing that people, when they disagree with somebody else's opinion, that it leads to so much drama all the time. It just, I always go back to the fact that we're supposed to be human as opposed to animals, and we're supposed to have logic and reasoning and all that supposedly animals do not have. But sometimes animals just either like you or they don't. It has nothing to do with your opinion. It's about how they think you're going to treat them. And it seems like they're more human than we can be sometimes. Just because you have a different outlook on something doesn't mean you have to be mean to people.
I agree.
Yeah, it's just
so. I love people. I find as I've traveled extensively throughout the U.S., I disregard the news a lot. I think it's a lot of hype, and I like the word you use, drama. Most of the people I meet are just amazing, wonderful people. I just don't see in my life what I see on TV. I remember, taking my mother on a trip cross country. I actually took her to go on the Mormon Pioneer Trail in the steps of her great-grandfather and grandmother, and we were doing an article for Hallmark magazine. And I took her, and it was the first time that she'd ever been beyond Wyoming.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And she was scared to death.
Oh, really?
She was frightened because we went through cities and that she'd never been in big cities like that. And, she'd watched so much news. She was afraid we were going to be hurt or harmed by the people. And I know there are dangerous areas. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
I try to avoid those that I know about. But most of the people are just welcoming, and they want to have a conversation with you, and they're as curious about you as we are about them. I remember one of my first genealogy trips that I went to Georgia, and I met family members. They were second cousins. My grandmother had left Georgia in around 1907, and I went back in 1997. So it's the first time that any of those people had seen our family for 90 years. They had memories passed down from their grandma. I had memories from my grandma, and we connected and shared. There was a little boy there that he kept wanting to talk to me, and his mama gave him this look, don't you dare. And I finally figured that he never met a Mormon or a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints before, and I was a curious thing to him. And I could tell that kind of, just a few little things that he said, I could tell that's what he wanted. And so I said, let him ask me. It's okay. it's not going to hurt my feelings. And he deserves to be curious. I love curious. And he asked me questions about being a Mormon, and it was fun. And they all then began to ask questions too, because they felt that love that I had and the freedom to share ideas. It just dispelled many prejudices that they had before. They said, you're not at all like what we expected. You're nice. And it was fun. And we've stayed good family ever since. And so it is interesting that we get preconceived ideas because of the media.
Yeah. And just how people pass it down through their families too. I mean, that's also part of family history, and it's that's what I think is so great, having these kind of conversations. And it's part of, like, with us doing the Love Your Parks tour. One thing Nancy and I think we're really just addicted to it, is because you're in so many different places and you meet so many different people. So anytime you think you have an opinion, every time you set foot another place and meet another person, you have to get another one. And we call it in South Africa, catch a fat wake up. It doesn't, now they say woke here, depending on what age you are, I suppose. But it is about, having these true connections. And I think now, family history is a unit, it's a unifier. And it opens your mind, because things that you may not like about another belief system, you're going to find out it's running through your veins.
Exactly.
You're going to have to embrace it at some point,
And it is all about how it's explained to you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was taught, when I was walking to school, that if a certain kind of person was coming down the street, cross to the other side. And and we did it because we were told to do it. That's why I was brought up. As soon as I was an adult and I ended up working with other kinds of people from all over the place, I was like, okay, well, there's no street to cross over, so grow up. And, it was like, oh, you're sharing a desk with this person here. You're like, and nice as can be. And eventually you find out that some of what is taught to you, it's taught to you from people who really didn't have first-hand knowledge anyway. They just, it's just something handed down.
Mm-hmm.
So right, or they had a really, really bad experience, a unique and terrible one, and they
and they say everything's like that.
Heal from it, so it gets passed on.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about family history, is we get to heal the generations. When we fix ourselves, we fix our ancestors, and we help our children. It's, our nieces and nephews, our family members at large. When we heal us, we heal the generations. That's our motto in Family History Expos is Family History Heals. I don't know if I've ever told you that before, but that's my firm belief.
I love that.
I like that.
It's powerful.
I really do.
It's so powerful. I can't wait for the holiday show where you get to meet Bobby DePorter. We call her the Queen of Excellence. She's the co-founder of Super Camp, and also she has created the 8 Keys of Excellence character education program. It's a character development program for kids, and she is going to love you. I can't wait for the show where the two of you can talk about this, because it is about that dialogue and opening up things, taking a look. How are you going to handle it? Healing, moving forward. And, when you heal yourself and others and the past, the present, the future, then you're developing your character. That's who you become. You become that you get your backbone, Going into Utah and the history there, so when people are researching their family history, it goes far and wide, right? I can't just say, well, it's going to be mostly these states that you're going to be connected to Utah, because, your history could be from England, over with Glenn Burroughs at Norfolk Tours. I know. And he was part of the expo.
We're related to everybody across the world. Utah is a melting pot, much like New York. Mm-hmm. You would think New York because of the influx of people from throughout the world through our religion, people that embrace the religion and they want to come to Zion, they want to come and be where all the other people that are, so they're not alone out there. And so we really have a diverse culture, and it's fascinating. One of the most surprising repositories that I found was that Golden Spike National Historic Site. My great-great-grandfather, Andrew Jackson Shoup, he was a member of the Mormon Battalion participating in the war with Mexico, and he kept a journal. He built 500 barrels of spikes that helped build that railroad.
Wow. Dude.
No way.
That's exciting.
Okay, I'm excited because I was looking at the spikes and what the golden spike itself, and we actually met here at Casa Grande Ruins National Monument here just outside Tucson. A park ranger who was doing the public affairs and education specialist, and she was there temporarily filling in for someone, but she was from Golden Spike, and this is when I think it was our first outing on the tour when we were 100% on the road, and she was the coolest lady. She's like, you have to come to Golden Spike. You have to come see me. And I think her name was April. I think her name was April or Andrea. And the coolest girl and coolest lady. and she was telling me all about it. And they have this like a reenactment every year with the train coming
Mhm.
I
through.
love it. Yeah.
You know, have you been to that historic site?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
My family owned land on what's called promontory,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
my mother, as a child, spent time there. And in the winter, they had sheep, and they went to promontory to winter the sheep. And so my family's very deep into the whole. I mean, they came. Andrew Jackson Shoup came into Utah Valley with the Brigham Young Company, the very, very first wagon train that came in. And so my family's been here since it began.
Wow.
And he settled up in the Ogden area and had mountain land that they run their sheep up in the high mountains in the summertime and cleared a promontory. And that's a long span. And they,
Wow.
you know, I told you this story of my grandmother making 25 pounds of butter a week to all the, it's that same, you know, the family, and
Wow.
they're here.
Wow.
But when I went to Promontory, and I've gone to the museum, I was so surprised that they had a library, a book collection. It's not on their website. It's not mentioned anywhere. Diaries, telegrams, oral interviews, maps, photograph collections. Who would have known?
Wow.
Unless you ask. Even when you go to museums, if you don't ask, a lot of times that family, you know, people think, oh, well, no one's interested in my family. They only want their own family. But unless you ask, you'll miss some of the greatest stuff that's available.
That's a really good point.
You're really right, because, you know, museums, they're so stretched on time, resources, people, you know, docents, and, you know, they have what they have and they're protecting it. And so when you come in, and if you're interested in things, I mean, everybody lights up in a museum, and they'll help you. You know, park rangers will help you at these historic sites. But it's really true. You know, when we go around to all the national park units and the state parks too, you start talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, well, we have this in our archives. We have that in our archives." I'm like, "I want in the archives."
Yep.
You know, we got really lucky here in Arizona at our state historical museum. It's on the university campus here in Tucson, and it was years and years ago. It was before we even moved out this way, and we went into. They have the most extensive pottery collection in the country.
It's amazing.
Southwest pottery.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
We just, time was on our side. Like, you know, just that, you know, just lucky. We met the professor, and he did come on our show later. And we were like, dude, the thing is, even the one lady who has worked in the museum for years has never had this opportunity to this day. We were talking about the pottery and the different tribes, and we were all into, you know, the nomadic side of the different Native American tribes and how things moved, even from, you know, the Aztecs coming up with macaws, and how you know, they were trading seashells here in the desert, but it was because of, you know, how everybody was nomadic. Anyway, he was talking about, I think they had like 6,000 something pieces of pottery, ancient pottery. And he was talking to us real quick, and you can't, when you go there, you see this little room, you can kind of see through where they have everything behind glass because it's all temperature controlled. And he's like, well, why don't you come in back with us? Oh my gosh, Holly, it was like,
amazing.
it was insane. He had rows on rows and rows of these, you know, special containers of all this pottery. And the lady who was in the museum taking us around was like, I never get to go around here. This is so cool. But sometimes you just have to ask, you know, because I was like, well, I want to see that. And just because we were interested, you know, and, you know, these people that work so hard on preserving the history, you know, when someone comes in interested, it lights their fire, man. They get all excited because someone's interested, because sometimes I think preserving history is a very solitary work.
There's a lot of categorizing and writing of cards and making sure things are explained and housed properly.
Yeah.
And he just had shelves and shelves and shelves of things that rolled out, and you would never know that there were things in there until he started opening drawers and rolling them out. You're like, whoa.
But this is connected to family history because there were families known for specific designs, specific symbols, specific ways of making pottery. So, like, you could go and connect with him and say, well, this is my family name, or, you know, they were known for pottery. Do you have it in there? And you could connect with, ancient civilizations in a museum.
But again, you would never know this.
So that's when you were talking about repository.
Yeah, you'd never know unless you ask.
We'd go right to things like that.
One time
right?
I was in Ogden at the Union Station. It's an old, an old train station that they've got a restaurant in it now, and they have a big ballroom area where they have parties, and there's a gift shop, and I was in the gift shop and looking at things and asking questions. I had some questions about the history, and she said, well, you need to meet this guy that's the president of the railroad group. And she said, he's a docent, he's working today. And so she took me out into the museum part, and he talked to me, and I told him, what I do and what I was working on. He goes, oh, you've got to come up to our meeting room. And we went back into the gift shop, and there's this little tiny stairway. I hadn't even noticed it before. It was just small. And we went up the stairs and into the rafters of the Union Station in Ogden. And I bet very few people know this is there. You go up and you walk through the rafters, and then they built this room. And it was full of scrapbooks and newspapers and histories of families that have been participated in the railroad and worked from that station. Amazing, amazing stuff that who would have ever known even existed. Wow. And I've seen things like that. I've seen rail cars down in Salt Lake, down on the railroad, where they actually can hook onto them with an engine and pull them, that are libraries full of books and
wow.
Just talking about railroad. If that's all we talked about today, there's so much that I've learned about the history of railroads, and most rail fans, they're saving things about cars. The rail cars, the engines, the measurements, the size of the track. But in the process, there are all these people who were involved in it, and they're historic figures in that industry, and they save all this stuff. And they're like, well, we don't have anything that's family history. And I will say, well, can I look? And then they have all these maps that have all the drawings. Like the surveyors went out to survey, and they interviewed all of the squatters or the pioneers or whoever was living there, the native population, and they've got all these notes. And they have photographs and pictures of these people, and you're like, holy cow, this is so loaded with family history. But they're categorizing the size of the gauge of the rail and how fast the steam engine goes.
Yeah. But that's really fascinating.
They don't even notice that all the
you were
stuff
on
is
the
there.
show with Yvonne Peach from the Coronado Motor Hotel in Yuma, our tour headquarters. And one year on the tour, we were off to Yosemite. And she says, you need to go find my father, his history. He's not there now, but he's passed since. And he was a surveyor of Yosemite National Park and all through that area. And she's like, there's got to be something about my father up there. And Nancy and I are looking at each other, well, going to a museum, and we're like, looking for her last name in a museum, but they're just doing the basic, here's, who was here, John Muir.
You'll find it in the National Archives. It'll be there. There'll be
See,
all
now
this
we need
stuff
to
will
go
still...
look. So now we need to go look, because it didn't even dawn on me. And the surveyors, that's how the National Park system, the surveyors and the artists, the painters, and the photographers and the writers. That's
all
our
of those
National Park
things
system.
are preserved, unless they were destroyed by some accident. But his surveyor notes will be somewhere. You'll be able to find them.
Wow, we're gonna have to. Oh wow, that's huge.
That's really huge.
And he went out from Missouri to there. She's outside of. She was. We'll talk about her family.
He's doing that for the. He's doing that for the federal government. They've got records of it. They have records of the Indian agents, all the tribal communications. You can't imagine the stuff they have. It's amazing.
What about that? Because this is something I know when we were in Yuma, Arizona too. We were looking like, well, okay, so if you're Native American, how do you find your family roots? How do you trace your family history? Are there places? Because Utah, definitely. You've got so many tribes there. Is there a way for people to go and do their research?
There is. If you are Native American, you get better access to the records than if you're not, because they've been through so much. They're pretty protective. But I've talked with the Shoshone tribe in Brigham City, and they've been open arms. But my family, I have a Native American ancestor, and there's just a connection, and it makes a difference. But if you really respect their history and show reverence for it, they'll open up. They'll open up, but they don't want people to trod on their
history,
that sacredness, and it's very sacred.
It's really, and I think this is another thing about the national park system having a lot of these records. They have some of the battlefield journals and things like that, and their history is it's harsh to listen to. The Chief Joseph. When you think about Chief and what happened, the Nez Perce up in Montana, and I don't know if they came into Utah. I have to look that up, but it was Idaho, and Oregon and Washington, and
we mostly had the Shoshone and the Utes.
Now Paiute. Now that's in supposedly in our family history is we're part Paiute, and doing the research of that and connecting with different members of the tribe, we learned that pretty much, and they were up through Yosemite area. Central California has some more on the eastern side of Yosemite, and then into Nevada, and then up to Utah, and a lot of them said, we're not going to be part of the reservations. That's it. We're off into the land, and so they didn't do that. And so now, and everyone thinks all Indians own casinos and all that, and it's not true. And
that's
so
a fairly recent.
That's recent.
Thing.
But the Paiutes don't. A lot of them. Some do, but they didn't. Some did, but go into that reservation side of things, and some did not. And
we have some Navajo in Utah, but that's in the Four Corners area. It's all over down there.
That's going to be hard to get the history if you weren't part of that system, or maybe it's easier if you're a Paiute. I don't know. I have to look it up.
Well, you just have to figure all the places. The national government has kept records of people for a long time. Even in the colonial times, their religious groups kept track of the native people. I've read Moravian records. They're written in German. They're very difficult. I've had people help with translation or read translated copies of the records. They keep. I mean, you just have to stick to the grindstone, and you start finding out. Someone was always interested, and they wrote things, and they tracked things. There are records that are kept, maybe in a private collection, but if you have an earnest desire, you'll be led. That's the word I use. You'll be led. You'll find it because it's there.
You're like an investigator. You're a family history investigator.
Detective.
The detective. The one thing you put in your article too. So you've got the state libraries and archives. You're saying the national, federal government side of things. But one thing I didn't think of was the college and university libraries. So. That's interesting. I never even thought of that. I thought that was really just a big haul of textbooks. I didn't go to college. Can you tell?
A lot of people that go to college don't realize that there's family history there. They don't think of it that way.
Yeah, I would never think of it that way.
In the Harold B. Lee Library in the university, Brigham Young University, a friend of mine, he worked many years ago, he worked at the Shoshone tribe and preserved their alphabet and their dictionary of all their words they created.
Oh, wow.
And just in the last 3 years, they resurrected that project and they have stored it. So people who are part of that Shoshone tribe, if they want to have access to the dictionary of that language, it was created. And most people don't even know.
That's awesome.
About it.
Wow.
So there
really
are
cool.
so many things that you just wouldn't think.
Wow.
When we went to Africa and I had to learn a bit of Swahili, what was interesting to me was Swahili at the time. It was said that there was only 150 words that you had to learn, and that because it was such a simplistic language, you really told a story because you only had so many words to work with. And so, like, if you were going to describe, say, an airplane, there would be a million different ways to describe it using the different words that you had, available to use that everyone would understand. So there would not really be a Swahili word for airplane because it's a story. And that's what took so long when people got together to negotiate over produce and things like that, or talk to each other, was that there were so few words in the Swahili vocabulary that everybody was telling stories. And that was what I was told why the men were drinking honey beer under trees. Because they were just having a conversation, and it took a while because there's so few words that everybody had to make stories up.
And that's why they're drinking. It's interesting.
But it is. I mean, now the English language is extremely difficult to learn, and then there's a million words, and then you think...
And every word has a million meanings.
Exactly. But here you are with only 150 words.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. And now you have names. So you think your family name is your family name, and then you start researching.
Oh, it's not.
How many people start researching and cross off things that they're actually related to because of a name change?
Oh, they do it way too often. I've heard people say, we're the 1 L Wilsons, not the 2 L Wilsons.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
And let's have a refresh, because the clerks don't know the difference, and they don't, it's, my maiden name's Thompson, Thomson. We do not have a P in our name, and we come from Scotland. We're not from England, and we're not from the Scandinavian countries, and we're proud of it. And my dad taught me if somebody put a P in my name, I was to correct them, and I have done that my whole life. But do you think I've corrected people? A lot of them. If I hadn't, how many times would my name be spelled wrong? And how many times did it still get spelled wrong because you don't always see what they do?
Wow, that's so funny. It's so interesting how that happens. Now, before I forget, it is National Button Day. So how are you connected to this national holiday, Holly?
Well, my great-great-grandmother's name was Keturah Button. She was the daughter of Zebulon Button. And Keturah came to Utah with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints through that Mormon pioneer migration. And I have collected the family history on the Button families of America. And I have a filing cabinet full of Button material. One day a friend of mine came over and she said, in the filing cabinet there's this little card that said buttons. She goes, oh, can I look at your buttons? I said, okay. And I opened the drawer and she goes, oh, it's family history. And I started laughing because I thought, of course it is, And she was a little bit embarrassed because she's a seamstress and she sews a lot of things, and she was expecting it to be a collection of actual buttons. And the next time she came to visit me, she brought me a necklace that she'd crocheted with buttons. So this beautiful necklace
That's
in honor of Keturah Button and all my work that I have collected on the Button families of America. So
well, okay,
it's a surname.
Stephanie, look at the name of Button. Who created the first Button?
Maybe somebody who made buttons.
Yeah, buttons.
Maybe somebody.
Maybe when they were assigned surnames, at one point in time, England made everyone have a surname. They didn't always have them. And so in Ireland, they could have a color, so you get a lot of greens and browns and whites. In England, Wadman was the person that put the wad in the cannon. He was the wad man, so Wadman is that. And maybe buttons were the people who made buttons. I don't know where the origin of the name comes from. I haven't.
Okay,
I
now I want to go do that.
that.
I'm going to go look at buttons now.
I think if you have the last name of Smith, then it was a silversmith or a blacksmith or
Yeah,
somewhere.
but Button is cool, man.
Yeah.
There's that movie, The Private Button or something. The Private Brad Pitt or something. That's all I remember of that. But I haven't seen that. Isn't there something about
Good
that?
movie.
But I know. Well, I haven't seen it yet. But yeah, this is really interesting because this is all about National Button Day. I'm looking it up now. It's about people collecting buttons and playing games with buttons, and because buttons, tiddlywinks and things like that. You used to play that as kids. How interesting. Holly, there's never a dull moment with you on the show. We always learn something new about family history. And everyone, Holly's article is up on nationalparktraveling.com. Just type in Holly and type in Utah. You'll find it. It'll be featured in the January through March issue of Parks and Travel magazine. She's also on blendradioandtv.com. So lots of family history. I can't believe it. I think you were on a show, just in July, and look how much ground we have covered in the last few months with you. It's amazing how much we've all learned. So thank you for that, Miss Jen Teacher. I've learned a lot.
We haven't got started yet, so we've got a lot more to go.
I know, and I know you're sending us on a mission soon to go and, gather family history stories and destinations across the country. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to be, talking to you from I'm going to call you from a rail car somewhere.
Oh, awesome.
We'll call you from museums.
So I have one question for you. That saying from Africa, was it catch a fat wake up?
Catch a fat wake up, yeah. Yeah, it's like you catch it. Like wakey.
Okay, I'm going to start using. I love that phrase. We always
Me
had
too.
wait just to hold it. What do you think it is? Your birthday? That's what.
So,
my
fat wake up call.
It's a wake up call. Catch a fat wake up call, or catch a fat wake up. Yeah,
I like that. I think that's a cute phrase and right out of Africa. Awesome.
Yeah, that was when. Yeah,
there's others, but we can't.
Yeah, no, we don't need to go there. But speaking of South Africa, we have a song for you, and I think this really connects with everything we've talked about. It's called "Freedom Has a Way." And it's from one of our favorite musicians out of South Africa, James Saunders, in the world, anywhere. He's based in South Africa, out of Cape Town area. And you can go to jamessaundersmusician.com, and that's Saunders. James Saunders, amazing guitarist, amazing songwriter. I just love his music. And to me, I know he said he was on our show recently, and he was talking about this song. It's one of the first ones we ever heard of from him, and it's one of my favorites. And he said it was about the freedom of travel, of being able to just go to the next place. And I'm like, well, that makes sense for me. But when I first heard it, I thought about freedom. I was thinking about South Africa and the changes South Africa had gone through. And I think we play this all the time on the show, and I can't stop doing it. But I think about what happened going across the country with, Brigham Young going across and looking for freedom in his way, right? And everybody following him through. So just the song goes everywhere. So thank you so much for joining us, Holly.
Hey, I'm happy to be here and look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, We'll talk to you in December, everybody. December 21st, Family History Holiday Party. And keep up with Holly at familyhistoryexpos.com and sign up for our newsletter. She's also on Facebook and Instagram. Here it is. Freedom Has a Way.
Before me, stretching up below. It'll take forever if only I go real slow. So take me by the hand, lead me through the door. There's a light in the sky that beckons in the night, leading to a distant shore. Leading to a distant shore. Freedom has a way, like the perfect stranger that came in your world to stay. I walked across these mountains, sailed across the sea, looked down into those deep blue waters 1,000 miles away. And I could never follow your religion all the way. Fear is her companion, the master and his slave. The master and his slave. Freedom has a way, like the perfect stranger that came in your world to stay. Where does it end? What will you say? Your story will never be in black and white. It's always written in grey. Just a handful of memories to write down in the sand. But these things that are forged so deep inside are never easy to understand. Never easy to understand. Freedom has a way, like